Every father thinks he's teaching his kids by what he says. But children don't learn from what you tell them. They learn from what they watch you do, day after day, year after year. Before you ever spoke a word about what matters, you were already building something, a structure, a set of load-bearing beliefs your family would one day stand on. This is The Blueprint is Already Filed, and today we're going to look at exactly what yours contains.
In construction, a blueprint isn't aspirational, it's instructional. It tells people doing the building exactly what to do, where the load-bearing walls go, how the structure holds, what the finished thing is supposed to look like. And once it's filed, it gets built from it, whether the architect is still on site or not. You filed the blueprint, not deliberately, and not with a signature on the front page, but you filed one anyways, and the people in your house have been building on it from years. This episode is about what that blueprint actually contains, not what you intended it to say, but what it actually says, because those two things are not the same document. Here's the first thing to understand about the blueprint that you filed. It wasn't written in anything that you said. You probably said the right things. You said family comes first. You said you'd be there. You said what mattered to you, what you valued, what kind of man you were. Those words exist, and your kids heard them. But a blueprint isn't filed in words. It's filed in what you actually did when the words were expensive. When showing up actually cost you something. Time, energy, the comfortable end of an evening. What did you actually do? When being present required you to put something down that felt important, what did you put down? And what did you keep? When the choice was between the version of what you said was easy to give and the version that was costing something, which one of those showed up? It's in those moments that we are filing. Every one of them was a page in the blueprint. And your kids, they didn't read it consciously. They didn't sit down and analyze your behavior. They just built from it. The way your children always do. Not from what they're told, but from what they're shown repeatedly until it becomes the only architect that they know. So what did the expensive moments reveal about what you actually valued? And who was watching when they did? Let's read what's actually in this blueprint of yours. Not the intentions and not the stated values, but let's dive into the document itself. The blueprint describes what men do when things are hard. Your kids have a working definition of this. They built it from watching you navigate difficulty. Not the professional difficulty that you handled well, but the personal difficulty that you avoided, deflected, or managed from a distance. They saw what happened when things were uncomfortable at home. They saw what happened when a conversation required something emotionally expensive. They saw what happened when presence was needed, but the cost of it felt too high. And it was from those observations that they built a definition. It wasn't a conscious one. Was a structural one, the kind that becomes the frame that everything else gets built around. So the blueprint, it actually describes what love looks like in practice, not in declaration, but in practice. So your kids have this working model of what it looks like when someone actually loves them. They built it from the most formative data set available to them. That was you. They watched what love did when it was tested. Whether it stayed present or if it became distant, whether it asked hard questions or it avoided them, whether it cost the person giving it anything visible. That model is now part of how they understand what love is. It will shape what they look for and what they accept, and actually what they're going to replicate. The blueprint describes what a man's interior life looks like. Whether men have one or whether they talk about it, whether the difficulty moves through them or gets managed around. Our kids now have a working answer to that question. They didn't form it from a conversation. They formed it from thousands of small observations across years of proximity. And those observations have now become conclusions. Settled, structural, load-bearing conclusions. So consider what definition of manhood has already been built, and especially from the blueprint that you filed. here's what makes this completely different from the other two acts that we've covered. You see, in Act 1, you saw the patterns. We put that out pretty plainly. In Act 2, we then recognized that we actually authorized these blueprints. And so what are we doing here in Act 3? Well, the people around us didn't just observe those patterns, they concluded from them. And those conclusions, once they're formed, become the structure people build their understanding of the world on. They're not opinions that get revised when the new information arrives. They're the foundations of everything. And foundations, they don't get replaced. They get built upon. So your son, he has a foundation now, a working model of what men do under pressure, what presence costs, what it looks like when someone decides that what's comfortable matters more than what's actually needed. He didn't form that model by accident. He formed it from the proximity to you across years and during a period when the architecture of his understanding of this world was still being set. Now that window, the one where proximity to you was the primary data, that window has been closing gradually for years and it's now largely closed. So the foundation that was poured during that window, it was set a while ago, but it's still a little open. And now it's supporting a structure of how he understands men, manhood, and what to expect from the people who claim to love him. Your daughter, she has a foundation too, a working model of what to expect from men who love her. What presence looks like from a man who's claimed as important, what it feels like when the person who matters most is available in logistics, but absent in depth. She didn't theorize that model. She lived it into existence. And she's going to carry that into every significant relationship that she has. And it's not because she's choosing to, it's because the foundations don't ask for permission. They just hold up everything that gets built on top of them. So what is this load bearing in your children's understanding of the world that came directly from what you have filed? This is the part that's going to require a bit more honesty, because the blueprint isn't still being reviewed. It's being distributed. Your kids aren't waiting to form their conclusions about you, about men, about what love and presence look like in practice. They've already formed those conclusions during the years of when you were the primary evidence. And they're already building from those. Your son is already making some decisions about what kind of man he's going to be, what he'll prioritize, and what he'll permit himself to feel and to show. And that's going to trace back to the blueprint. He may not know that consciously. He probably doesn't. But the structure that those decisions are built on came from somewhere. And the primary source was you. Your daughter, she's already navigating relationships, friendships, and early romantic interests, her own sense of what she deserves from people who claim to love her, and using a map that she drew from watching you. Now, the map may be imperfect, and it probably is, but it's the one that she has, and she drew it from the most available informative data source in her life. So this isn't about fault in any way, and especially as that word probably lands right now. It's about facts. The blueprint, it's been filed. The conclusions, they've been drawn. The document is already sitting in their hands, and they're building from it right now, today, in ways that's going to shape the arc of their lives. So that's the cost. It's not future tense, because it's already been paid, already received, and it's already load-bearing for them. So what are your children already building, especially from the blueprints you didn't know that you were filing? You see, you didn't mean to file it. No man does. The intention was never the relevant variable here. Blueprints don't require intent. They require proximity and repetition, and you provided both of those. The document that describes what men do under pressure, what love looks like in practice, what presence costs, and whether it's worth paying, that document exists. It's in your handwriting. And it was filed during the years when your kids were forming their foundational understandings of the world. And it's already being built from. Now, that's not a warning. We're just doing a bit of accounting here. The cost of the gap isn't accumulating somewhere in the future, waiting for you to get to it. It's already been paid. In real time, and across many years, and by the people who had no choice but to build from whatever it is that you filed. So the blueprint, it's already sitting in their hands. The only question now is what gets added to it from here? Not as comfort, as fact. Because what gets added from here is what we're going to talk about in the next episode. And that ledger is still open. Band of Brothers is where men reckon with what they've built and decide what gets constructed next. And if you're ready for that, go to therevolutionaryman.com/Band of Brothers.